Well, it's hard to believe we are already in another episode of Fostering Change, and it's fall. I absolutely love this time of year. People ask me all the time, what is my favorite season? And it's fall. I like the crispness in the air, and, I know that the holidays are coming around and love spending time with my friends and family during the holidays. But what I do love more than anything is doing this podcast. See, I get to talk to some of the most amazing people. I get to read some of the best books. And by the way, if you ever think, what book should I read? Send me an email. I can tell you because I read books all the time because of our amazing guests. My next guest, Rick, he is a best-selling author and founder of Spark Change. Each and every one of us have the opportunity to be a part of the change. If you follow me on social media, you actually see that I hashtag be the change, because we all have the ability to be the change. And before we start to talk about the 12 hours of heaven, lessons for a better world. Gosh knows we need a better world. Rick, welcome to Fostering Change.
Yes, thank you very much, Rob, for having me. It's a pleasure and honor to be on your show. Thank you.
So, Rick, I'm very lucky. I get to call you my friend. You and I have talked before. You have an absolute amazing podcast as well, and being such an amazing book author. And your books are easy to read. This isn't your first book, and your book are easy to read. But what I want to know is, what was that aha moment in 2020 that sparked you to make change?
Yeah, excellent question, Rob, and thank you for asking, because that's really where my journey of life kind of took a big turn, and where things really changed for me, because I was going about life, felt I was happy, comfortable, had my family, and the different things in life that we have, a home and happiness and health. And when the pandemic hit, so much of that was taken away, or at least that illusion of control that we all have was taken away. And that's where things changed for me, that I became anxious. I became fearful of what the future held. I saw my coaching business diminish to almost nothing. One client that I was the acting COO, I was resign or laid off from that position. So I found myself essentially unemployed in many ways, and just worried about what I was going to do, how I was going to, feed my family, and how I was going to pay my mortgage, and all the things that we worry about as humans. And then I started to pray, and I realized that I was far better off than so many other people, and that I was, who was I to think that be like kind of woe is me in my situation, when people were dying, people were suffering, and there was a lot worse going on. And it reminded me of, being grateful, focusing more on gratitude, focusing more on serving others, this purpose that I was working on to have in my life of loving and giving and serving. And I hadn't really I had thought, hey, this is what should be my purpose, but I wasn't really living it. And in 2020, that's because I was forced to, that's where I was really forced to start living that. And it all started with writing 12 Hours of Heaven, because that was the catalyst that drove me to create iSpark Change and to totally change my life and do so many other things. But it all started with, kind of that loss that the pandemic inflicted, and that anxiety and that struggle, to where I had to find an outlet to change my way of thinking. And that was writing.
Yeah, the fact is that, I talk quite often about what the pandemic, how it affected each and every one of us, because I truly try to look at it as something in more of a positive way, that it actually gave so many of us as creators an opportunity to reset. And truly, it did that for myself. It did that for so many people that I know. Yes, I will tell you, the first several months was scary as hell. And, and just as how do you pay your mortgage? How do you make sure there's food on the table? And, I will never forget, it was about 3 months into the pandemic, and someone reached out to me and said that, and I was, by the way, feeling sorry for myself. And because I'm a public speaker, and all of a sudden, no one's booking me to do public speaking, to get on a plane, to fly anywhere. And I'm feeling sorry for myself. And all of a sudden, someone reaches out to me and they said, hey, we're going to Baltimore City on Saturday, and we're going to be handing out sandwiches. Do you think your family would like to join us? And it was that, for me, that aha moment where all of a sudden I go to the store and I buy, my family ended up making like 300 sandwiches in our kitchen. And we drove to Baltimore and we started handing them out, and seeing these people who had it a lot worse than I had, was that absolute aha moment of saying, gosh, you know what? It's really not as bad as I thought. For you, though, here you have this successful career, and this is only a speed bump because of, COVID. Did you, as you were getting into this and you're writing the book and, you're building this, did you all of a sudden realize that maybe you were taking some of your pain and making it into your purpose?
Oh, absolutely. 100%, Rob. That was completely crystallized for me in the writing of 12 Hours of Heaven, because when I started writing in beginning of April of 2020, and I started just writing it very methodically. Hey, I'm going to write 500 to 1,000 words a day, and I'm just going to, write every day consistently. I mean, it was all new for me, and I had that luxury of time, so that part was easy to do. But what I didn't realize is the impact that it was going to have on me going through that journey of writing the book and letting those words, flow out. And about the beginning of June, that's when I just felt so spiritually connected and felt like the story was being given to me. And I would wake up at all hours of the night with these different ideas and creativity and just felt so connected to God that I felt a connection with that higher purpose. I felt that I was being driven to this purpose. And that's where the idea for I Spark Change even came from, is in sparking change and in making a difference and helping others. And that's woven through the book, but it wasn't planned that way. It wasn't planned that it was going to be a part of the book. That all came during that, inspirational, spiritual connectedness time that I was going through. And that's where I realized, I'm like, oh, yes, that is the purpose, love, give, and serve. And this is what I'm going to live by. And this is what I'm going to devote the rest of my life to. And that's where it was like, okay, like, you've been given this stamp now, and it's on your, on your soul. And that's how, I'm going to go about all my days. And it's funny because my wife, I don't have any tattoos, and my wife has some tattoos, and she's like, why don't you get love, give, serve, tattooed on your body? I'm like, it's on my soul. Like, I don't need it on my body. It's on my soul. I'm not a tattoo guy anyways, but I mean, I have a bracelet that I wear that, and it's funny because I'm not wearing it because I was just typing, and I take it off because, sometimes when I type it bangs on the keyboard, but that says love, give, serve. And so I wear that, but I firmly believe that, my purpose is now it's inside here firmly. And I try to let it resonate out in everything I do. And that all came during what you were saying.
When you went to your wife and, you're like, okay, and you're a young guy, but at the same time, all of a sudden you say, I'm going to take this different pathway in my life that, by the way, is also going to have to help pay the mortgage and the food. So I remind people all the time, for those that are listening and watching on our YouTube channel, you cannot fill someone else's cup until you fill your own. Okay. Mm-hmm. Simple as that. So, all of a sudden you go to your wife and you're like, okay, I'm going to leave this, business that, it's going to come back, but I'm not going to go back. And I'm going to do this. What was her reaction?
It was scary. Just I'll rewind one sec, Rob, because it's an excellent question, and tell you that it was scary to get to the point that I shared that with her first. Okay. Because when I was going through that period that lasted for like 6 weeks, where I was like, the writing was just flowing, and I felt like it was just, receiving this divine download from God, and I wasn't writing the story and all these ideas. And I'd wake up at 2 a.m. with thoughts and things about for I Spark Change and all that. I didn't tell anybody about that. When that purpose was being, branded on my soul, I didn't share that with anyone because it was so personal. It was so private, and I didn't want it to end. And then probably I was afraid of what they would say, right? Afraid I would be judged, or, all the things that we think of. We think others are going to, going to make fun of us, or, are going to think you're crazy or whatever. And so I didn't tell anyone. And then when the day I finished writing 12 Hours of Heaven, when I completed at the end of July, I felt this incredible urge to tell anyone I possibly could. Now, because of what I was just describing, I didn't just go out and start telling anyone. First, I told my wife. It's, Saturday morning, we're laying in bed. We woken up, we sometimes will talk, right? But we'll sit there and kind of lay in bed and chat. And so we're talking, and that's when I tell her everything, what I'm just describing. I tell her all that, just, completely, bearing my heart and soul, completely vulnerable. And she starts crying, and she tells me, and you say I'm a young guy, but she says, well, it took you 49 years. I was 49 at that time. She goes, it took you 49 years to figure out your purpose, but, I'll support you in every way I can. And, I believe in you and everything. And those words were everything to me.
Yeah. Let me tell you something. Marrying the right spouse is the best thing, because I had the same exact thing happen to me when I chose to leave the banking business. Listen, everybody, we're going to take a quick break. The book is 12 Hours of Heaven, Lessons for a Better World. And, as I've said this quite often, each and every one of us have an opportunity to be better humans, be good humans. And I think that if you read this book, there's so much that you're going to be able to take out of it. And understanding, and something that I want every one of you to listen to, is the fact is no matter what or who you believe your higher power is, you do have one. We'll be right back. This episode of Fostering Change is sponsored by Comfort Cases, a national nonprofit that inspires our communities to bring hope and dignity to our youth that are in foster care. For just $10 a month, you can support the Comfort Cases mission and help us eliminate trash bags for kids who are entering foster care. For every $10 that you give, Comfort Cases will give a Comfort XL to a child entering the system. Be part of the change. Visit comfortcases.org. I say it quite often, there's nothing like a good conversation. Whether you're listening to this podcast in your car, or maybe you're working out, or maybe you're doing what I normally do, and that's in the evening time. I really get to listen to some really good podcasts. This conversation is one I hope each and every one of you tune into. But I also believe that there should be a takeaway, and the takeaway is definitely purchasing this book, 12 Hours of Heaven, Lessons for a Better World. Rick, one of the things that I really, when I first met you and I knew about the title, the 12 Hours of Heaven, I think sometimes, and I always try to make sure that everybody is included in our table. I'd like for you to tell us just a little bit about this book, that it's not this religious-based book, but it's more, as you say, lessons for a better world.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Rob. And that's something that it was very important to me to convey to everyone when the book came out. And as I was speaking to a publishing consultant that helped me get it published very quickly, in October of that same year, 2020, it was important for people to understand that it was not this quote unquote religious book, because I didn't want that to scare anyone away. I wanted it to be a book that anyone can read, no matter what their beliefs are. And even in the note from the author, I even discuss all this. I even, share that it is really for everyone. And it's a fictional tale that was inspired by a major car accident that I was in with my wife and kids 20 years ago, where we should have been killed and we weren't. But the book is a fictional story about an angel that is sent down from heaven, and he gets trapped in an elevator with 10 individuals, 10 completely different individuals, all different, walks of life. And they're trapped in an elevator for a period of 12 hours overnight, hence the title of 12 Hours of Heaven. And they don't know he's an angel. But during that time, he's able to help them through the biggest challenges that they each are facing in their lives at that time. And he teaches them these lessons that speak to their particular situation, whether it's to have faith or to practice gratitude or to love or to serve. And these are not unique to my book. Everybody knows that. These are things that we've all known for thousands of years. I've put them in an easy to read story, as you said, that people relate to the characters. People have told me, oh yeah, I really related to Matthew or to Faith or to Betty. I mean, there's all different types of characters that people can relate to, because that's what I feel really connects us, are the stories and the challenges and the adversities that we go through in life. And I know you and I have talked about this before, about some of the different, traumatic events and things that have happened in our own lives. And that's where we can find some common bonds and some similarities that help us to share with one another and bond with one another. And that was my big hope in writing 12 Hours of Heaven, is that, no, it's not a religious book. It's a book for anyone. It's something that everyone can have a takeaway, like you said, with the show, have a takeaway, hopefully more than one, and that it will have an impact on them in the same way that it impacted me, and impact them for the better.
Well, I will tell you, Rick, I immediately thought, probably halfway through, this has got to be a movie, because I think people will get more. There's so much more they can get out of it. And the fact that having someone first, and again, this is my perception of how I got into the book, was having someone even recognize that you are not grateful and that you need to be taught gratitude is something that I'm thinking, there's so many people in our world who, think that they're grateful, but really when they look at it, it's like, maybe you're a little self-serving and not. So like I said, it is such a great book. And again, I do say this, and I don't think I've said this in all the podcasts that I've done. I'm trying to think back, because I don't want to offend any of my authors, because I have authors all the time. It's the first time I actually looked at my husband and finished a book and said to him, I could see this as a movie. And, it's that good. And there's some books that you just finish at the end and you're like, I got through it. And even though the book was good, it was painful. This book, you get through it and you're just like, okay, what's next? What? Yes. And it's not only what's next about the book, it's what is next for me. So, creating purpose in one's life is something that I think that you and I both we agree on, is that each and every one of us should be creating purpose in one life. What would you say that, if those who are listening or watching right now, okay, and they haven't picked up your book yet to read it, how do you think that they get started on creating that purpose in their life?
Yeah, it's an excellent question, and I think more people need to ask themselves, Rob, for sure. And it's a question that I didn't ask myself for decades, and it took some traumatic events to really have me start examining internally. And I think that's where people can start, is they can start with, okay, what has happened in my life that really leads me in a certain direction? What drives me? What am I passionate about? What are the things that, get my juices flowing, for lack of a better way to say it? What are the things that if the world were to end tomorrow, or, in a week, what would I spend my time doing? What would I want to focus on in that little time? Because, time is the most valuable resource we have, on earth. And I wish I had learned my purpose much earlier in life, not until I was, almost 50 years old. And so I think, kind of some tactile things that people can do is first, they can realize that everyone does have purpose in their life, that they do have a purpose, whether they think that they don't or they do have something. And then they have to stop and look inside and say, okay, what drives me? What am I passionate about? What do I want to create in this world? And, for some, it might be like, for my wife, my wife's, her purpose, she's a fitness instructor. Her purpose is helping others, but it's in a completely different way than I help others. Right. And so when you start digging through the layers of, who you are, you'll see, okay, I see what my purpose is. Even for someone, let's say that, they're an accountant or something, but they love what they do and that drives them and they're so passionate about it, then their purpose may be, in people understanding their finances or helping people, with whatever it is. So when you really get to that deeper why, then, that like way deep inside why, then that'll give you a clue as to what your purpose is and what's going to drive you, every day. Because it's not to, get a paycheck, and it's not, to, sure, there's things like, hey, I want to take care of my family and I want to, provide for my kids. But why do you want to do that?
Yeah.
What is really driving, those? What are the motivating factors? And you got to dig deep. You got to dig through those layers.
I agree. I agree with you
on
that completely. And what we should not do is wait for that traumatic something to happen in your life.
Mm-hmm.
That, for those who are listening right now and those who will share this podcast, now is the time. Now is the time for you to really start looking is your purpose in life. I read this on social media the other day. No one's going to remember how much money you made or how big your house was, or, but what they will know is what's the impact you made within your community. And having your purpose in life is, and as you said, whether you're a fitness instructor or you're someone that helps with the mind, or you're someone that is an impact in your community. It truly is. It truly is. Listen, everybody, this has been an amazing conversation. Again, the book is 12 Hours of Heaven, Lessons for a Better World. Okay, I've said this, and I'm going to say this on record. Do not be surprised. Do not be surprised when this is a movie, because when you pick this book up, everybody loves that good fall read. You curl up in front of the couch and the fireplace, and you really want that good Saturday afternoon. The rain is coming. I'm telling you, my friends, get the book, read it. You are going to absolutely love it, as I know I did. And I've already recommended it to some of my friends. So please do me a big favor and pick up this book. Rick, it has been an absolute pleasure. You are truly what I call a change maker when it comes to how we all walk that path within our lives. And the thing I love is you have taught me a lesson when it comes to a better world. Whether you're watching this on our YouTube channel or you're listening on any of the podcast platform, Deezer, Spotify, Apple, Google, we just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for the support that you've given us. As we're winding down our third season, we just could not have done this without all of you, with all the listeners and all the comments. And again, if you have any questions whatsoever, Rick's information will be listed within the body of our podcast. And I hope each and every one of you send me an email at fosteringchange@comfortcases.org and let me know how much you love the book like I did. Take care. I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for listening or watching the latest episode of Fostering Change. All of us on our team hope that you've learned something new today and have been inspired to be a good human. Now, just a reminder that you can always find Fostering Change on your favorite channels on Google, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, and others, including, of course, comfortcases.org. I want to give a big thank you to all of you for joining us each and every week. And a reminder that if you have a suggestion for a guest, or maybe you might have a question about today's podcast, or are interested in becoming a sponsor of Fostering Change, please don't hesitate to email me personally at fosteringchange@comfortcases.org. Now, that's it for now. Thanks again, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Take care.